Welcome back, Colin. Good to have you.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on, Tom. It's been a few years. I think I was in my parents' basement last time we talked, and now we're here. I think you and me have both progressed in our careers, always still striving for more growth. So it's an honor and a pleasure to be on again.
Thank you, Colin. Yeah, it's definitely been a wild ride. I think the last time we chatted, Rinju was with us, and yeah, he was living in town here, and yeah, it's kind of crazy when you look back on things. You realize how much really goes on in the short amount of time.
And how
Um,
quickly it moves too. I blink and it feels
yeah,
like I lose weeks at a time. And it's actually starting to get a little scary to where it's like, I mean, am I just gonna blink and a year goes by? Will I
I don't
take
know.
a breath and have kids the next minute? It's like, oh my gosh. It's really making me savor the moments, even if they are difficult, because like what is
Yeah.
life? If you only have good moments, what is there to make the good moments good if everything is good? So
That's
the evening,
yeah. There's a lot to be said about that, like the contrast.
yeah,
Um,
man.
I was just reading this interesting post. Um, It was a reference to a conversation Tom Bilyeu had with Dr. Andrew Huberman. And Huberman was talking about that they found that people that have too much pleasure and not enough pain don't experience dopamine very well.
Yeah.
So he said, like, actually, the more pain you have, the better you'll enjoy good moments in life. And I was like, what? This is crazy. I felt very biblical, but at the same time, like, kind of nuts, but also it kind of, I guess, like, stands up to my own experience. Like, it's like you only really want to celebrate the win if you had something to go through, if that makes sense.
100%. There's a quote that was told to me years ago. I was in a really rough place, and it's the imperfections in art that make it beautiful. If everything was beautiful, would anything be beautiful? If there wasn't the negativity to really outline the goodness in the world, would anything be good, truly? When you look at dopamine as a whole, it's structure, because neuroscience is a very like I have an amateur interest in it, to where I know a decent bit about neuroscience when it comes to like the specific parts, how it applies to like MMA, how it applies to lifting and overall productivity, just because those are what I've looked into for my own self. When you look at dopamine being released, it's the molecule of motivation. It's not the molecule of reward in a sense. The majority of dopamine is released as you work towards a goal. And in the most difficult times of working towards the goal, it's the path of climbing the mountain when the journey feels the best. And you notice when people hit the top, they reach the top of the mountain. A lot of times they get depressed because they don't have another goal to work for. Every single fight camp that I've been in, as hard as it was and as sucky as it was, having to balance, not seeing the now fiance, girlfriend then, not having any time for things that seeing my family, having to like really destroy my body and to push it to levels that I hadn't pushed before. It was those times that were the most valuable. And then the second you have the fight, you win the fight or you reach the goal, you feel a little empty. And it truly isn't the destination, it's the journey, as cheesy and corny as it is. And
Hmm.
so trying to find satisfaction in the daily life and getting better, not necessarily achieving the goal, because if you're always looking towards the next big thing, will you ever be happy? I think the answer is probably no.
Hmm. That reminds me of something I heard, and he talks about a lot. There's a guy named Ed Milet, and he's pretty big. Do you know him?
Yeah, man. He was, I think he had Huberman on like 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to he had one really good one on flow states that I
Hmm.
remembered, and I was like, this is fascinating. I think I was a junior in high school at the time, back in like 2018 when I first heard that. And then I want to say the talk about the dopamine being released when you hit the top, or the dopamine being released as you work towards the journey. I want to say that's where I first heard of that concept, was from him years back, and he has some cool stuff. I like Ed Milet, an
I like
OG.
he isn't. I feel like he's one of the first guys in the podcasting space for big names. I think it
Yeah.
seems like he was one of the first ones. Um, and one of the things he talks about a lot, and he lives his life by this, is being blissfully dissatisfied.
Yes, sir.
Do
Yes.
you know that?
That was
Yeah.
one that was one of the things that stuck with me. I when I heard that, I'm like, wow, that's beautiful. And so
Yeah,
I'm gonna strive towards that state myself if I can. And it's hard some days, but
it
it does
is.
feel a lot better. And you don't become complacent, and also you don't become too overly ambition is bad, isn't the word isn't bad, but you don't become so ambitious to where you can't enjoy the wins as they happen.
Yeah.
Always want more, always be willing to push yourself a little bit harder, 1% better every day, but you have to enjoy the process at least a little bit. Otherwise, you'll make your $500 million and you'll still be unhappy.
Yeah.
You'll get the six pack physique, which I thought would check that box for me when I did it, and but I wasn't happy. And so, looking at what you can do in a day, and once you've done all the steps to reach your goals, being satisfied with that, viewing that as the win, not like once, because for example, during when I was just getting into the workforce, when I was completing my associate's degree, it was during COVID, and I remember I was laid off of my job, and there's no places hiring at the time because at least where I was at, just due to like the coronavirus, and staffing, and my parents also weren't a big fan of me being on the community, and so I paced around the room endlessly, like stressing. I'd have panic attacks every single night because I had so much energy because I wasn't checking the boxes that I need to check.
Mm,
And
yeah.
it was awful. And I told myself then, I'm gonna fill my day with work. And so once I'm able to, do the things that are gonna push me towards, where I want to be in life, better MMA record, maybe owning a business, being self-reliant, maybe not being a millionaire necessarily, but being able to provide for my loved ones. That's when I'll view it as a win, not necessarily when I hit the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's because it's easy to like, I think get stuck in the idea of, oh, it's all about the journey and not about the destination. So then like, you make yourself take longer than you should.
Mhm.
But then when you make it all about the destination and not enjoy the journey, then you're always miserable while you're working towards that. It's almost
Yeah.
like this, I don't know, like a delicate maybe embrace of both sides, maybe.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. I think giving yourself timelines is good. What I also like too is when you are working towards your goals. Businessmen, and this is what I got from Ed Milet. This is years back. This is what stuck with me too. Businessmen should work like athletes, and athletes should work like businessmen.
Yeah.
Having and what Arthur from the Blood and Rain podcast says is an assassin's mindset when it comes to your work. Don't just do it
Mm.
hard, be precise. And so one of the things that I've taken too is number one, having a massive task list for my day that's broken up into all my different the areas of my life. So the 9 to 5, the personal training, the online personal training, my own fitness, and then I'm a Boy Scout scoutmaster for a troop. Uh, and then there's that too. And then volunteering and other tasks, fiance house tasks too, using that to stay on track so you are measuring what you're doing. And then when it comes to my training in the MMA gym, and it's a small part of my life, but I'm starting to track the moves that I execute. So I have a big spreadsheet with different combos, and every time I get a rep in, I check it. And then, or moves that
Oh.
I'm trying to execute. So, triangle for mount, which has been the big one that I've been going for. Every time I get one of those, I check it. Or Kimura sweeps, sit-up sweeps. I've been big doing a lot of ankle locks, but I'm getting reps and I'm making it measurable instead of just oh, we're gonna do this today and then we're gonna do this. And even if you're working hard, you're still missing a big photo, big picture. I remember,
Mm-hmm.
when I was in getting my degree, I missed my final exam for 2 classes. I was working hard. I was doing all the tasks need to be done, but because I wasn't tracking it and doing a to-do list of anything, I just completely missed it. The intensity was there, but the organization wasn't. And once people can become a little bit more organized and run their life a little bit more like a business, I mean, you can get a lot
Mm.
done. You can have
Yeah.
like 3 days worth of work in one day,
Yeah.
and still find time for other things. Are people really that busy, or are they just having really poor use of their time?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great question. Yeah. Because it's so easy to think that you're busy if you're just in front of the computer. But if you're not doing anything, you're just wasting time.
Yeah. Or if your focus is divided between different tasks. I
Yeah.
mean, multitasking isn't real. My big struggle is having a YouTube video on in the background while I work. And I noticed
Mm.
that when I turn that off, as much as, the dopamine addicted part of me, I'm a hedonist. So I think we're all hedonists in today's day and age. We love pleasure seeking for better, or for worse, most of the times worse. Um, it's a hard time, having multiple streams going on at once. I remember it started off when I was in 6th grade, or I think, yeah, 6th grade. I was playing Minecraft while watching YouTube videos, and I realized that I couldn't just play Minecraft alone. I'd have the YouTube video on the background to feel good. And the next thing you know, like you're just stacking dopamine source upon dopamine source. Adding energy drinks to the mix for me was a big thing. And so trying to use that for you in the terms of seeking things that benefit your life instead of just being addicted. That's excuse me. That's been my big struggle personally, but
Mm-hmm.
we're
Well,
all working for it.
no, for sure. And that's something I was realizing this week a lot. Hormozy said that you need to be okay being bored. in order to win. And that's really, honestly been one of the hard things for me because I always like listening to podcasts. I like listening to things. And it kind of scares me to be bored because like I grew up, homeschooled kid by myself pretty much all the time. So I got really tired of being bored. So like now I'm like, do I have to go back to that, to like actually succeed? And you're like,
Yeah.
well, maybe I have to do the work alone so that I have the foundation that I can then build upon with others. So yeah.
Yeah, to add to that, you remember the trend? It was people raw dogging flights, like not having any source of like stimulus or engagement. Um, I flew to Colorado for a trip, hiking, a ton hiking, camping, finding different fighting gyms. Great time. But on my way down there, I tried that and it was really nice. It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought, not having like any devices for 3 hours, just staring, just like set alone with your thoughts. And it's made me realize it's been a while since I've done that. I've had
Mm,
like always music playing and audio, but for me it's been mostly audiobooks now because I like the story a little bit more calm. I don't need to be super amped up all the time. I'm pretty high dopamine anyways, and I feel like once you start stacking energy drinks, loud music,
mhm.
it becomes a little bit draining at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But just sitting in silence, it was weird. Um, and so trying to be okay with that, trying to learn to be okay with being a little bit bored, putting my phone down on like road trips, that's been interesting and it's been difficult, but I realize like if I don't have the discipline to not have scroll on YouTube Shorts the second I'm bored, I mean, what's going to happen when life gets really hard? Trying to be the guy who's not just like very physically fit, but I want that mental and the mental discipline too.
The mental,
And
yeah.
I don't want to just to be in the gym either. I don't want to be just, MMA fighter's cool and all, but I want to be able to be a guy who can actually be present with his wife and kids and
Hmm.
not raise up another iPad kid to join the work
Yeah.
world as a suboptimal human.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. That reminds me of I was at this the 10X growth conference that Grant Cardone runs,
Hmm.
and the last speaker was Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, cool.
And I was blown away by his what he said. He would have Grant would interview each person mostly, um, and so for like 45 minutes, Ryan's up there and he's talking about all these different things. And Grant asked him, "What is your method for creativity? What's your method to be successful?" And Ryan said that he spends about 3 hours every morning from 4 to 7 when he's by himself, just allowing himself to be bored. He said he wakes up, grabs his coffee. He says, he has his phone over there. He said, but I don't touch it. I don't want to be distracted from my own thoughts. And then he realizes when he's bored, that's when he's most creative because he's trying to bring himself out of that boredom. So he's like rising above from himself, not using an external factor to get out of his mind space. And so he starts writing down his jokes, his ideas, all of his things that he's thinking about. And he said that's like his best time of every day where he produces the best sort of content that he can then use in movies, use in his business, use in his own life. And that one hit me hard. I was like, dang, I totally distract myself from boredom so much. And uh, he had this other point. He said, he said from 2090 from like 2010 to 2090, um, all the people that go to heaven and St. Peter's there and he's asking them like, what was your life like? They're just gonna find all these people just sitting there like this for years of their life. And he's like, dang. He's like, what, shouldn't we make our own stories instead of looking at everyone else's? And I was like,
Yeah.
dang, like, no wonder this guy is successful. He understands creativity, and he said that his goal in life is to make stories with other people. And he said if that's on film, if that's in business, if that's in his family, he said that's why he loves movies so much is because he said he can create a moment that people can share that then they can then bring about in their other parts of life. They can talk about it in their friends and all these things. So it's like it's a living memory. And I was like, man, that is so poetic. I really want to talk to him in person now. I'm like, you seem like a really interesting guy. I was expecting, just shallow jokes, but it was pretty deep.
That's awesome. Yeah. If I think that the second we can like, I mean, when you look at our brains, I mean, how much there's a certain like portion that's developed to like just surviving, keeping your heart beating, keeping breathing going, moving around, walking, moving, just very basic tasks. But I
Yeah.
mean, if we're always overloading our senses with different stimulus, like how can we really allow our brain to think and like not just have thoughts, but actually like thoughts that lead somewhere productive. I know that I want to say
Yeah.
it's 90% of all thoughts are the same thoughts that we have every single day.
Hmm.
Like only a very small percentage of them are actually new thoughts we have. It's just repeated from like learned experiences and learned days, patterns. And that's a little scary. Like I want to be a different person. I want to get better. I want to improve every single day. If I'm the same person every single day for the next I don't know, 20 years, that's a terrifying thought. And my issue is too is I'm not creative. I'm a decently hard worker, but like I struggle with that creativity and trying to build something. It's always been pretty easy for me to like put my head down to the grindstone and just work. But having being able to build something is what I've wanted to work at instead of just following the mold. And
Hmm.
it's certainly a weakness of mine. I'm trying to grow, but I think that the boredom side of it is something that I need to certainly embrace more too and be better with being present.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like the ratio of how much time goes into work to how much time is in the victory. And a lot of the time the work is yeah. So Harmozy was talking about kind of derail that idea. I'm gonna bring it back here. Harmozy was talking about that he's like winners aren't excited about winning, winners are relieved when they win. It's like they're really glad they didn't lose.
Oh yeah.
And he was saying that if you're excited about winning, you're not really going to win because there's not enough momentum to get you there. And so I was thinking about that in relation to boredom. It's like you don't want to lose, so you're willing to accept what is required to get to that goal. But to get to that goal, you might have to experience a lot more pain than you would want to experience. But it's not so much that you just want the pleasure of the moment of winning. It's more like you see the good of winning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I the relief to win. I certainly felt that during the I don't think I had my second fight after we talked last, but I get into this cage with this guy who weighs 30 pounds more. I fought up 2 weight classes
Holy
and
cow.
I walk in at 190 when the weight cap was 205 for the light heavyweight class. And I trained very hard. I've always been a physically big dude, and I see this guy in the weigh-ins, and I'm like, this isn't the guy that I thought I was fighting. I thought I was fighting some fat dude, out of shape dude. When in reality, he huge back, gorilla back, invisible abs, and he actually missed weight the first time, so he's even heavier than 205, and he barely made it. And I was told he had 5 wins, 5 losses. And so where they're reading off our names when we're in the cage, Mike, whatever his name is, fighting out of this place, Sheboygan, Wisconsin, 17 wins, 7 losses, 1 draw. And this is my second fight. And so and I'm looking at this guy and he winks at me. And huge guy, 6'2", jacked. Um, and I was like, oh crap. I was like, good time to bite down on the mouth guard. And I barely like I think I would have won either way, but I got a submission off in the first round and broke a shoulder pretty quickly. But just the feeling his power and when he grabbed me and getting thrown around and barely getting up, and then reversing one of his takedowns to get the submission. When I was done, it was like I wasn't happy. I was just so glad that I managed to get that victory out. And then the celebration, I think, lasted a whole 20 minutes because it was just like on to the next thing. And I don't want to be the guy who's back in high school at bench 315, you know. Never want to be that guy. And so there's been a few times when people have mentioned, "Oh, you're the 205 champ." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I guess I won a belt. Maybe once, but trust me, it's not something that I'm ever gonna let become. I tried my best not to let it like ever change, the humble. I think humility is something that all men should have. And no matter how good you get, there's always a bigger fish. Someone richer, stronger, better, faster, better looking, more effective. And so I'm very well aware of that, and it's cool to have done something that was very challenging, but that's where the victory was from. It's not from
Mm,
what I did on paper. It's from like how hard I worked for it and where I pushed
yeah.
myself to. And then in the future, trying to beat that and be strong and be even more mentally disciplined and push myself even harder.
Hmm. I really respect that mindset. Yeah, it's easy to feel like once you win, you can then carry that on to tell other people that you're cool enough to be around, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And it
like,
does not make you look cool either.
no, and it erodes your self-confidence.
Yeah.
Instead of you like trying to work for something new, you're telling other people, I was really cool, so you should talk to me, or you should hang around me, or you should be my friend, or you should work with me. I'm like, no, I have to, what do I have today to offer? It's not like maybe I was in a better mindset then than I am now, so maybe I'm not as valuable in this way, so maybe I should actually just up my game and then offer in what I can, but not assume that based on my past victory I can win today, you know?
Yeah, it's always the loudest talkers that come off as the most insecure and fragile, no matter where they if they
Mm,
are insecure and fragile. Um, and a lot of it's in the fighting community too. Everyone's bragging about, oh, I did this is my
mm,
belts. You know, they it's the first thing they bring up in conversations, and I've struggled with that too because it's something I'm passionate about. I like talking about what I enjoy.
yeah,
Um, but like, I looked at, if someone is gonna find out that I fight or that I'm a lifter, I want them to find out without me actually telling them because that just makes like takes number one, I just bragging isn't good for the soul, I feel like. But two, it
no,
also takes away from like what you actually did do. And a lot of times when people are like sharing their goals, their pursuits, their aspirations, I think statistically, the more you talk about what you want to do, the less likely you are to do it because you get dopamine from talking about it, and that leads to less motivation for actually pursuing the goal. And so
mm,
keeping it to yourself. And I think that a lot of therapists
yeah,
would disagree with me, but I think that you should work in silence always and like be don't not be afraid to like not have any friends, not maybe not have any friends, but not don't necessarily bring people in on everything. I mean, work in silence and work hard. Like you don't need to be surrounded by people 24/7. You don't need like people, oh, you're valuable, you're worth it. Get that self-confidence by actually building up a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are, not talking affirmations in the mirror. I want to say I heard that in the Huberman's podcast too. Like saying like, "Oh, I'm valuable. I am this. I am strong." Like, sure, that sounds great, and you might get like a little bit of a boost in confidence, but like for me, I always been a pretty strong dude, fit dude. Did the two fights, and I even after that, I didn't feel like I had won. Because I looked at it and it's like the first fight, I out athleted the person the whole entire time. I got hit a few times, and sure, like stepping in there scary, but there's still that thought that I would have taken the coward's way out and like tapped early or like pretending like I was
mm,
injured. Like I was always scared. There's always a coward inside all of us, no matter who we are or how big we get. And I knew mine was pretty big, especially for my childhood. Like not putting any effort into sports when I was in high school and especially middle school. And then whenever I've had to push myself mentally or physically in years past, calling it a little earlier before I should. Oh, I'm not feeling the best. Maybe I should not go as hard. And so that was the first fight, excuse me. And then for the second fight, I won it so quick, and yeah, it was super stressful and hard, but I won it so quick in a way that like didn't feel legit, that I didn't feel valuable even after having a belt. And so going into the Muay Thai fight, and this definitely happened after I think we talked. Um, I see the guy, I see he's from an elite Muay Thai gym, and the fight before me, the guy, I saw him warming up. He had this big Roman Centurion helmet on, and I'm like, that's sick. That guy, he got knocked out, had a seizure, and shit himself in the ring right before I fought. And so that was the fight before me. And so I walk in, in this fight too. I was from coming from the mindset of being more respectful than anything else. Like I wanted to do it to like for the sport and because I wanted to push myself, not because I wanted to take some guy's head off, which were my first two fights, which I hated how I acted back then. And so I walk in, we touch gloves, and it's just I'm taking knees to the body. We're kicking each other down, landing sweeps, and halfway into this, or quarter into the second round, I took an illegal. It was an illegal knee. Even the guy was a much better fighter than me. I would have lost anyways. I took an illegal knee to the head. I got knocked out. Woke back up. Somehow convinced the doctor that I was good to fight, even after being out for like 8 seconds. And then managed to somehow finish the fight with blood literally spraying. Like I remember looking down and I'm like, this is really cool. Like I was like, this is it. I saw how much blood was coming out of me, and something clicked in my brain to where it's like, all right, we did it. We pushed ourselves to the level where might not have been able to years back. And being told, like being given an out, because like the doctor came up to me, like, do you want to continue this? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, are you sure? Yeah. And he's like, he's like, what's this plus this? And I took way too long, but I managed to answer it. And then the ref asked me 3 times, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Do you really want to do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." Meanwhile, like another doctor is trying to cancel it. Another doctor from another one of the rings, because there's 4 fights going on at once. It's a 1,200 man tournament. Is trying to call off the fight, but he can't because I committed to it, and so I barely managed to finish the fight. Double black eyes, blood spraying out of my nose, and even though I lost. That was my most valuable experience. I was sitting in the emergency room of the hospital with blood coming out of my eye, and I was like, this as terrible as I feel, not being able to breathe through my nose right now, I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like, who
Oh,
can say that? And so not getting caught up in that victory, but at least knowing that I can push myself to a place where
yeah.
like getting knocked out, getting back up, managing to at least finish, and go to the judges. I I think that's my most one of my most proud accomplishments, physically at least. So
That's like what Rocky said. Like, he says, I don't care if I lose, I'm just never gonna stop fighting.
yeah, yeah. Or what I think Rocky told Creed, where it's like it's not how hard you get hit, it's about how hard you get hit and get back up and keep on going.
Hmm.
And so yeah, we all have to build that muscle, man. I mean, this is a rough world, and it's rough in that there's a lot of really easy things to do in life. I mean, like junk food, like
Hmm.
food is cheap. Cheap pleasures are very cheap. Um, but when life gets like hard, when like you're confronted with like really difficult stuff, I mean, a lot of people don't have that muscle built up to persevere.
Hmm.
And God forbid something terrible happens to someone I love, my family, or I have to do something like more difficult than getting knocked out. I want to be able to do that, and actually survive or help someone else, even if it doesn't mean, I come out. And I don't want to be a coward too, It's not about just being a person who hasn't done like who has isn't doing any wrong. I want to actually be a person who's doing good and continually making the choice to be a decent person, not just living a life where you're not confronted with any hard choices, because how many times do seemingly good people do really crappy things because that's the first time they've actually had to choose or been given power to do something really crappy and gotten away with it.
Hmm. Hmm. No, that's so true. It's so easy to fall into the temptation of taking the easy way out. And this reminds me when you're talking, I don't know if you've heard this song. It's called Taekwondo by Walk Off the Earth. It's a really funny song.
Okay. I might have to look
Um,
that up.
but the first line is it's the hero and the coward march together inside of every man.
Mm,
And I was like, "Ooh, that's good. That's really
that's
good."
good.
It's
That
almost
is good.
like, it's that old saying, it's the angel and the devil on your shoulders who you can listen to. But um, have you heard about Jordan Peterson's new book, We Who Wrestle with God?
I have not. I read his 12, I think it was 12 rules. I read that a while, I think when it first came out years back. Um, and I enjoyed it. There's some good stuff in there.
Okay. So he just released this book in November, and I think it's probably his best thoughts yet. It's just brilliant. But he talks in there, and then he's also in some podcasts he's had on recently where he's expounding his thoughts. He said that it seems like it's the worst possible thing for God to place a person into a world where they're going to get crushed continuously. Doesn't that seem cruel? And he said, maybe, unless you can overcome all those things that are your trials. So maybe it's the greatest gift ever.
Yeah. I mean,
Because,
like, how hard has anyone, like, out of all the bad stuff that you've like gone through? I mean, you're still here. You've gone through all of it. I mean,
right.
it might have kicked your ass, but I mean, you're still alive and kicking. So, in reality, what can truly stand up to you? Statistically, all the challenges that seem like it's going to be the end of the world, you're going to get through. I mean, and if you don't get through and you gave your hardest and maybe you don't actually truly get through, I think that's and I'm saying it's a good thing that you might not be on this earth, but I think that's a really valiant thing that you gave it your all trying to beat something and might not have been
Yeah.
able to.
Yeah, at least he went down fighting,
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I just really like that thought because he was saying, like, maybe the reason that, well, this is kind of me expounding on his thought. You know how Jesus talks about the way is narrow and few make it.
Oh yeah.
Well, what I wonder about that is maybe it's not so much that people consciously choose evil, but they weren't willing to accept the pain of being good.
Yeah.
So if you are presented, and I think that's why God gives us time, is because He allows us to make little and big choices based on what we have now to do the right thing. And every time we take the easy way out, we're essentially choosing the cowardly way, when in reality, God's asking us to conquer something wrong that can then be set in order and therefore live out our Christian identity as being sub-creators, you know? So it's like we can only like raise a farm after we kill the dragon. So
Yeah.
it's like if you run away from the dragon, you can then not you don't have that land, so you can't offer prosperity for your family. You lost the woman because she's on the other side of the dragon, and then now you're always running because the dragon's running after you because he saw you. So it's like you have this compound effect of just like losing, losing, losing until it finally eats you. It's like maybe that's what God is trying to tell us is like in order for you to live a good life, you have to be willing to endure the pain of evil set on you. And if you could do that, then you'll become more like me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too what most people don't realize is like even if your life is like really hard, like from the beginning to the end, I mean you still go to heaven, which is pretty great. You still have like joys that we can't even like possibly fathom and imagine, a peace that we can't like understand. So it's like yeah, might have sucked on paper, and it's easy for
Yeah,
me to
yeah.
say like I'm so privileged and I'm so blessed and I have so many great
Same.
things going
Me
on,
too.
but like you still get to be a part of something so incredible, and it looks like too like listen, there's a woman I knew. Her name I think was Mary. I don't remember her last name. She was blind, in a wheelchair, and had so many heart issues, but she was the most devoted Catholic I have ever met. This woman,
Wow.
like a future saint. Like her heart was so big. She was so happy. And I remember when she passed, um, I remember like my mom came in with a big smile on her face because she's like, I'm so excited that she's finally like with God. Like, and I was like, that's so beautiful. You know, she had a difficult life, tons of health issues. Like it was really bad towards the end. And like when she did finally go, it was incredibly beautiful. Like I didn't it was sad that she was gone, but at the same time I was so happy
Hmm.
for her. And she's the person that like I really like truly strive to be like on a daily
Yeah.
basis because I look at myself, if I was blind, if I was going deaf, if I was in a wheelchair, if I couldn't, wipe my butt myself, like I hope, I pray that I could be the guy to still have faith and still persevere and not, hate God for
Yeah.
where I at.
Hmm.
No, every single bit of life's a blessing, and I
Amen.
want to be the guy who like when something really bad happens, I want to still be able to like as bad as it could get. I pray that I have the strength to still find put my faith where it should be
Hmm.
in the matter.
Hey man, yeah, I was actually kind of makes me um well, there's a question I wanted to ask you because I think it's like a lot of us as guys, we're always in that mindset of fight, conquer, subdue. And I was wondering about that because it's like we're also supposed to be um, creators of new life, you know? So that's like our role as being a lover. We're supposed to be good enough that another person wants to bear our life forward with new people. It's
Yeah.
pretty incredible to think about. And I was curious if you know, like even in the daily, even like moments of like going from warrior to lover mode, like how does a guy do that without going too far in one direction? Because I see a lot of guys that are just always the poets, but never the warrior, and then always the warrior, never the poet. And so it divorces themselves from a lot of good people. So if you're always the warrior, you'll be with a lot of really hardcore guys. But the thing is you may be with those hardcore guys, but those hardcore guys might be actually really good lovers at the same time. And so you only get like a half relationship with them. Or if you're only just a poet, you'll be maybe with similar guys or other different guys, but you won't actually have that expanse of your person. So that was something I've been struggling with a lot is like learning how to have fun again. It's like, well, what do you say? Like, what does a guy do to have fun and be playful?
Yeah, yeah, it's a difficult question. I certainly fall more into the I would say the warrior range, and I'm actually like people look at like, oh, you think you're a warrior? I actually think it's sort of become a bad thing because it's hard for me to relax. It's go go go.
Yeah.
And for a while it became so bad to where it's like I genuinely enjoyed hurting people like in the cage. Like
Mm,
I would be driving to work and I'd be throwing these shovel hooks in my car because that's I was just picturing myself in a place where I could, I just wanted to fight. It was fight, fight,
mm,
fight, 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 push my body to the max, break my body. And so I suffered from that extreme. And then there was a point in time too to where it was like oh, I want to be the guy who's like has a social life, who's able to like who spends all of his time with his loved one. And it's like too far in one way isn't bad. Learning how to balance it though, you become so much more well-rounded in a sense of
yeah.
you're the best warriors, the warriors I've seen, let's say the best fighter, he's not just this one-dimensional like brick wall of Mike Tyson hooks. He's creative. He's able to like analyze his opponents. He's able to use their own moves against them in a way that's so thought out and so intellectually precise and physically precise. It becomes a masterwork, an art piece. That person's creative. That person's incredibly creative. It might not look like creativity that most people are accustomed to, but that person is writing a song that most people can't even
Mm,
begin to understand at a level that's so hard to get to. Like that's how it might enhance your skill in that area. And if you're a pure lover, it's like sure you're able to like have these great relationships with people, your loved ones and whatnot too. But like I think as a whole, and we might not need it as, or we might not think we need it as much in these times. I mean, there's always going to be people who want to take what you have or hurt someone you love, or physical things that come by that might take you out. Um, Falling, let's say a car accident and whatnot, like having the physical dexterity, the intensity to persevere through those things, and to keep yourself and your loved ones safe. That's important. People might not think it's important nowadays, but I think that makes it even more and more of value. A woman I knew at the MMA gym that I go to, her house got broken into by a drunk guy, and she had a baby with her that she was babysitting, and so
oh,
had to use her actual MMA fighting to beat off this guy who was trying to hurt her.
wow.
And you don't hear about it a whole lot, but that stuff happens. Um, I was sitting outside my house the other day smoking a cigar. It's my one of my big vices is cigar smoking. I never did cigarettes, vaped maybe a few times, but never became a habit. Cigars though, that's unfortunately my downfall. That and energy drinks. And this van pulls up. This is 2 in the morning. I'm doing work in my garage. It's weird, I know, but I was just typing away in my garage, doors open, smoking a cigar, and this van pulls up outside my driveway, and three men get out. They're sitting against the back of the van, just in complete silence, smoking cigarettes. And I'm like, I'm sure I'm thankful that number one, I have a gun on me that I know how to use.
Yeah.
I
Uh-huh.
was like, it was like the one time I brought my gun outside with me, but I have my waistband, my holster, and I'm an MMA fighter too, which isn't the end all be all, but it's like I'm pretty physically capable. What if they had tried to rob me or hurt me or whatever? Um, there's a phrase, if one man can hold you down, two can rape you. That's where the warrior side really comes in handy. And just persevering through hardship, both mental and physical. And so I think that like wherever you fall at, training your strengths in the warrior lover poet, a priest realms. Training your strengths might make your strengths a little bit stronger, but if you train your weaknesses and make your weaknesses your new strengths, the strengths that already exist tend to go through the roof, both in the sense of physical training, but also traits like creativity, emotional intelligence, spirituality. I mean, like a lot of times the best examples of people that I look up to for what my faith wants to be like, how devout I want to be like. They're very disciplined with their the physical nature of man, um, just as are they are with religion and vice versa. I mean, how many times have you seen a pastor who gets called out for some egregious crime, and it a lot of times it seems like they're generally the ones who don't have any discipline in like their physical sense too. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's the end all be all, and so individual And what our own life circumstances certainly come into play. Like it's not the this end all like might equals right type deal, but I think that once you do sort of take responsibility of your life, it is your responsibility to at least be capable in all areas to a level. I'd rather be the warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, and not for
Hmm.
my own sake. I mean, I there's real stakes now. I have a soon have a wife. You know, I plan to be a father. That's the dream, and so it's not just me. You know, self-sacrifice, self-sacrificial love. That's the goal. I want to get there
Yeah,
because I am such a selfish bastard most days
me too.
that it's really scary to look at, and I don't want that to be my ending.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's so much wisdom what you just said. It's uh yeah, I think it's like as guys, we I I've been thinking about this a lot lately. There's a very interesting way that now we're presented in the world. It's like it's almost like we're if you had like a row of phones and the phones are looking at each other and it's just like images behind people. They're just trying to like say what image gets the most attention and then that person wins.
Yeah.
And so it's like with guys, I think a lot of times it's like, well, who has the most status? And then whoever has the most status will get the most attention. But it's not like you're actually longing for a true relationship with someone. You're kind of just saying who stacks up on the best of your cards so that you can therefore have the best life, the most respect, the most reputation. It's not really like who do I find as a really good person that I want to give myself in a self-sacrificial way to. It's more like who am I going to have the most creds with?
Yeah.
It's kind of messed up.
Hmm. Yeah. It's a lifestyle that leads to a very, very dark ending. I mean,
Yeah.
both usually when you're alive too, because you've built this. I mean, you might have material wealth be a very little actual real wealth, and then when you look at it, and then
Yeah.
too when you die, I mean, you chose a life that wasn't God. You know, you
Yeah.
chose, and then you're confronted with the thought that you could have loved. You could have been
Yeah.
you're loved regardless. Obviously, God loves you even when you're in hell, which is
Mhm.
beautiful and scary, but you're confronted with all the guilt of knowing that you could have done it the right way and the true way, but instead you consciously chose to not put your faith where it matters, and that's scary. And I pray that I'm never confronted with that. There was and I'm forgetting this Bible verse. Depart from me, for I have not know I don't know you.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
like if
It's a hard one.
the thought of that being told to me when I die, oh my gosh, that's a terrifying thought. It gets me going, you know, and the goal is to get into heaven, even though we're all so undeserving of it, no matter
Hmm.
what. Like
Hmm.
literally, we're all pretty much functional psychopaths who only are getting by with the grace of God. I think me especially, like it's the depravity of man and how far we can go. It's not a thought. That's not a place I ever want to end up because number one, I think we all could end up there. Could all end up
Yeah.
doing terrible, unspeakable acts. Um, and it's not just avoiding the bad, but it's choosing the hard every single day
Choosing
because
the hard, yeah.
evil isn't just this one random choice that happens, you
Yeah.
know. You're walking down the street. It's a series of small evils that add up into, you know, being a fundamentally wrong person who's okay
Hmm.
with doing wrong things.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. I, I, I sometimes, I think a lot speaking about like who you end up as at the end of your life. It reminds me of another thing. I actually wrote my thesis on this from Ed Milet, my college thesis. Um, it was
So
so
it's the
good.
Goggins quote where it's he's like, I don't want to be confronted with the man I could have been when I die.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so good. And
So good.
so Ed Milet, he has this one. I'll have to share it with you, and I'll drop it in the show notes. I'll just write that down real quick. Um, but there's one. I think it's called "Feeling the Flame," and it's a speech that he gave to his alma mater, and he was talking about like at the end of my life, he's like, hell is gonna be God shows me the person I could have been. I don't know him, and heaven's gonna be this is who I made you to be, and you are that person. And it's such a powerful image. You're just like, gosh dang, that's good. Like
Yeah.
it's so true though. Someone else said something the other day, I heard it somewhere, that those moments when you feel like you nailed it, you did great, you were awesome, you said the right thing, you did the right action, you love the right way, that's the real you. People say that, oh, you're consistent, whatever consistent is you. It's like maybe, or maybe that's just consistently not being you. And the due times you blossom forth, that's actually you. That's what God's trying to show you. Like, this is what I'm trying to get you to.
Mhm.
Because we all have those moments where, like, dang, that was just perfect? And I think that's kind of like I guess maybe like the combination of us doing all the right things for the right moments. And then that's like when the opportunity comes, we're ready to be there in the most present way. Um, yeah, I don't know if, do you listen to much NF?
Yeah, I used to listen to a lot more than I do now. I usually don't listen to music. Like I said, for my workouts, just
Yeah.
trying audiobooks. But yeah, he has some great music. Enjoyed. And the fact that it's not, lyrics are relatively like you're not gonna hear any like terrible things either about
Yeah,
what women or violence or sex. Like that's nice. It's a good,
it's very good.
yeah.
Oh, and it's interesting because I feel like he is expressing a lot of what the younger men are feeling right now, where, most men feel alone, unwelcome. They don't know how to talk. Like all the skills we should have in order to succeed in life, we're not taught really well. We're expected to just learn them by being around people. And you can do that a lot, but a lot of times you're consciously unaware of things that you don't know or you're doing wrong. So people will discount you or not want to talk to you or whatever, and they won't tell you the reason why. And you're just like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
And I think NF or Nate does a really good job of expressing those thoughts that we have, the cycles we're in, and then by acknowledging those that were in those cycles, I think you're able to kind of propel yourself out of them because you're realizing, oh, I was thinking in this mind frame for so long, thinking these are my premises, beliefs, and therefore I got this action. Um, but I just wondered if you listen to him because I turn him on a lot of times when I'm just like thinking through things because he just has some lines. I'm just like, that's so good. Like, there's just one I love so much. I think the song is called Oh Lord. And in there, he's saying, you know, we often wonder where God is when we're unhealthy because when we're feeling fine, we never need him. But as soon as we feel bad, we need to call on his name. And we always wonder where he is, but he's like, it's really hard to answer prayers when no one's talking to you. You're like, oh man, that's so good. So
Mhm.
good. But
Yeah.
it's, yeah. I feel like, honestly, a lot of the world's, I think the hardest part of being alive is controlling your own mind because it all starts there. But like once you get your understandings right, your beliefs right, then you start to make the right actions that will then be the most godlike in your life. Sorry, that was a huge rant, but
That was good. That was
trying to
good.
connect it. So,
Yeah. You said a lot of times people end up in these cycles where they're doing the wrong thing and they don't know why, and so they're never able to grow from it.
yeah.
What I say to that is every person who's watching should constantly. I try to do this every single day. Constantly reevaluate your approach and try to optimize where you're going for.
Yeah.
Be better with your speech. Be better, more eloquence. Learn how
Mm-hmm.
to actually develop good social skills because now I hate it. I still am terrified by public speaking. It
Oh,
terrifies me.
really?
Every single time I'd be shaking, my hands would be shaking during the early stage of recording podcasts. Underneath the desk, my hands would be quivering. Not quite there
Really?
anymore, but there's always some apprehension still. Talking in front of people, in front of groups, always been terrified. Until recently, always been terrified, and so that's been the muscle that I've been trying to grow. Um, and two, being a good partner and an unselfish partner. I mean, that's the other one too. It's like I want to
Yeah.
be a decent person, and a
Yeah.
lot of times it's hard for me to be a decent person too. So after I go on dates or what can I do to be a more effective listener, to be a better future husband, better spouse, more caring, more loving, more charming. Because you got to keep the romance alive. And then too, like in the physical sense. what can I do to optimize my physical health? What cycles of training can I do to keep my body from adapting and not growing? How to keep my body injury free, the protocols of prehab and rehab to stay healthy and explosive for not just 10 years, not just 20 years, but for the rest of my life. And then changing it once an approach doesn't work or becomes counterintuitive to what you actually want, adjusting, refining, and then making those small changes. So
Mhm.
I try to view it from all those angles, and it's difficult. I mean, I was a really awkward kid, and so I still struggle with talking to people sometimes. The more I find myself thinking about what I want to say, the more I find myself stuttering. I mean, it's
Yeah.
one of those things. I developed a stutter in high school, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, how can I be? And it was because I was overthinking everything, and then you think about it more, and then you sort of psychosomatically convince yourself into doing it more, and it's just, oh my gosh. And so just doing it and getting better,
Mhm.
developing real applicable skills and continuing to build it. And not going on rants like I'm doing right now, rambles, tangents. It's hard, there's always something you can do better. The more you know, the more you don't know when it comes to any single task you do know. I mean, I've been grappling for 3, maybe 4 years now. Oh my gosh, there's people who make me look like a child. There'll always be people who make me look like a child. Um, I've been a lifter for 8 years now. There's people who make me feel weak or point stuff out that I haven't noticed before, who theoretically on paper may or may not be more actually versed in the subject matter than I am. And two, like I am probably honestly at low average intelligence scale. Like I'm not the smartest person in the room ever, but trying to broaden on that because the variables that I can change, this the non-solid variables, the plastic variables, I want to do my best to actually maximize them. If I'm not the smartest person and never going to be the smartest person in the room, or maybe not even like on the upper side of average, I want to be doing my best to put the cards in my favor so that I can have an advantage and can continue to grow.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, that's something interesting. Like a lot of people talk about like intelligence and being smart, and more is being shown that intelligence is a very fluid thing. It's really fascinating. There's a guy named Jim Quick. I don't know. Have you heard of him?
I have not.
Okay, you'd like him. His last name is Day Kwik. It's pretty funny. That's his
Like Quick
actual
Trip.
name. Um, but he was saying that there's different ways of measuring intelligence, and IQ is actually a very improper way of measuring someone's intelligence.
Hmm.
And so he said that you can change and become more intelligent all the time. And he said that genius isn't born, it's generally made through deep practice. So he said the most genius people you know are ones that studied something thorough enough in order to understand it well enough to then be considered a genius, but they just see it more than other people. Um,
Interesting. I like that.
yeah.
Gives me
And
hope.
well, exactly. I mean, and I found that a lot of what I thought was like mental disability or whatever was not that I was not actually capable of that thing. I just was sick. Like I found that I had a lot of food allergies that I never knew I had. I thought I was just healthy, and then I realized that yeast will actually put me to sleep. So if I have too much bread, my brain starts shutting down and I can't speak very well. I'm not thinking very fast.
Wow.
Um, but I didn't know that till I was 25 years old. So you never know what's gonna happen with a lot of like I think that's one of the cool, beautiful things about exploring anything, like going into fitness more, into business more, into anything. Like the more you dive into it, the more you're able to see that you can do more in that craft. And so the way of the master really not only allows you to do more things for more people, but allows also tells yourself that you're a lot better than you thought you were, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool. It's kind of like God's way of saying, no, I really did make a wonderful creation with each person. And for you, it's not, you shouldn't discount yourself just because someone else told you you're not quote unquote all that they think you are. You
Yeah,
know,
that's
it's
good.
kind of like that not self-esteem, it's like that self-understanding maybe.
Oh, yeah, yeah, realizing parts about yourself that are harder truths to come across.
Hmm.
Yeah, a lot of times it's interesting too. I've seen a lot of people who it's like very high, probably very high IQ, like traditionally measured, and they're very poor social skills, very maybe physically, they just have no proprioception. Like even how they navigate like the world, there's very clumsy people. And then I see
Mm.
like people who maybe aren't the smartest when it comes to book smarts, but they're just like physically, maybe physically strong, but not even that. But there's how they're able to move in like let's say
Yeah.
a sports setting. It's just beautiful. Like they're able to do things that I can't do. And that's interesting too because I don't think it's wrong to be more skewed towards one or the other, but I think we should be jacks of all trades. I think it's cool to specialize in something, and I think we all have our strengths naturally, but I don't want to be the guy who's like only good at lifting. I want to be the guy who's good at running. I don't want to be the guy who's only good at talking to people. I want to be the guy who can actually like write down, be a good writer, put their
Mm.
thoughts on the paper, teach, not just do one thing or the other. And I don't care about being the best at anything because you'll never be the best at something. You can get competitive, or maybe even like to the upper echelon, but statistically you won't be the best at something. I think striving for that's great, but I think that like I'm no if I'm not number one, I'm worthless is the wrong way to go
Hmm.
about it.
Yeah.
But realizing that you can improve these variables that traditionally were thought static and unchanging, I think that's great. I mean, how often are people out of shape because they believe they can't be in shape? Versus, a lot of times, how often are people, they're on paper, unintelligent when they just haven't put in the work to become and improve those skills?
Hmm.
It's, I've seen some very seemingly on paper unremarkable people transform into really cool individuals and vice versa too, to where someone might be very gifted initially in a lot of areas, but they waste their gifts and they squander them and eventually turn out to be the seemingly the opposite end of what they could have been.
Hmm. Yeah. It's funny that Milet's coming to mind so many times this conversation now.
Hey, it's theme of our talk. It's
Theme of
good.
the talk, yeah. He had this story of a gentleman, um, he had a guy on that was talking about this gentleman and this kid, or this guy as a kid, uh, thought himself was really dumb and stupid and everything, and he didn't like going to school. He didn't like school, and then he was applying for college, and he got an extremely good SAT score, like one of the best. And he said, "Oh, well, if I got that good, maybe I should go back to school. Maybe I should use my mind a little better." So it goes on. He becomes very successful, a huge name. And 30 years later or so, he gets an envelope in the mail and it said that your score was switched with someone else's. But in his mind, he believed that he was so good that he had to use his gift. When in reality, his score didn't show that gift.
Hmm.
So it's like maybe your scorecard isn't actually your scorecard. It's like maybe
Oh,
it's just what
100%.
you believe, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
such a
we
good
a lot of
story.
times we place limits on ourselves, what we think we're capable of. And
Yeah.
like I said, like I've seen really seemingly people who would not have won the given circumstance do really well in
Hmm.
fighting. Let's say like I see a person who's like, oh man, that person does not seem like they could do it. It's like, oh man, they just knocked the guy out in like 3 seconds because they had belief in themselves, even though they didn't seem like the superior fighter. That's
Hmm.
really cool. Or for ourselves too. I think that there's one thing where it's like there's some feat of strength that was only capable when you believed it, and it was interesting. We
Oh,
had to do it in like fifth grade, and it was something to do with like holding something. Maybe two people like one person's being prevented from falling. It's something weird like that, and it was only capable when like the person actually said it out loud and believed it. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Now, maybe not the most applicable way of like demonstrating it, but it speaks to the idea. And so, yeah, if you believe that you're going to be dead tired and exhausted after a really long day, you probably will feel dead tired and exhausted. But if you believe that, like the indomitable human spirit, can go through a lot, you might still be exhausted and tired, but you'll still get through it. My worst days have only been as bad usually as I thought they would be, like looking at them.
mm,
Like, man, today's gonna suck. Yeah, it probably will. Today's gonna go so slow. Yeah, it probably will. I looked at my day, it was I think Wednesday. I was at work at 5. And it was 5 to 4. And then from 4 to 8, I was training someone in the gym, and then from 8 to 9:30, I went and fought MMA, and I think I somehow fit a lift in there too at one point. And then I came back home and I had more work to do on my computer. And I remember in the morning, I'm like, man, today's gonna be really awful. And I kind of slapped myself, and I'm like, if I just bite down on my mouth guard and get through it, I'll survive for sure. And it actually went by surprisingly quick. And the shifts, and this is one too, like the short shifts that when you work, let's say like a you're scheduled for a 4 hour long shift at work, it was always those shifts that felt the longest because I thought that they'd feel short. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and when you look at something as a I'm just gonna do it and not worry about it, just do it, it tends to go a lot better. You know, you tend not to make mistakes or overthink it, and time it becomes how it should be, you know, and not caught up in every second.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah. There's so much about perception that allows for strength or weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling. Like a lot of what um like most of what motivational tapes are is giving your mind a new perspective to think in, and then in that thought pattern you can then do so much more.
Mhm.
It's so interesting that you almost need that thought frame in order to do anything. It's you think that this actually might be a reason why communism never works. It's like if you are told you must do something and do it to this level, but you aren't given the encouragement, the insight, the stories, all of these other things that back up what those actions actually entail for someone that made that happen, you essentially give this person an impossible task with their frame of mind. So
Mhm.
they're always going to be frustrated, feeling like they can never win, they're never going to succeed because you didn't give them what the human heart actually needs, which is stories, belief, trust, all the things that actually show that we're a living person. So that may be why like why so many people feel so terrible at work because it's so mechanized. It's like do this to do that. And then you forget that, oh, in order to actually give those results, I need to have this elevated mind thinking more as what God would think like than just like a slave, you know? The slave's
Yeah.
given the task, make it happen. Where
Yeah.
God is like, here is my, here's what you're capable of. This is what I want you to do, and this is how you get there.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, we were the product a lot of times of the limits that we either set upon ourselves or society sets upon us.
Yeah,
I hate seeing headlines like top 10 reasons you'll never own a house or top 10 reasons you'll always be broke. Like it's like, oh man, you're just kind of setting people up to believe that mindset, you know. It's like true. It's bad right now in some areas.
sure.
Um I mean, we're still most Americans are broke, you know. Stuff's
Hmm.
expensive, but at the same time too, if you constantly believe that you'll never go far in life because of what the news and media tells you, you'll never go far. And at the same time, too, if you're told that it should feel easy to get rich and wealthy and do all the cool things you want to do, and it doesn't feel when you do attempt it, and it's not easy and as rewarding as it should, you're told it should feel, you're going to be immediately dissatisfied and frustrated and give up. And so, I think whatever you do, realize that like there's two hard paths in front of you. There's the hard path of being of failing and
Hmm.
being okay with that, and there's the hard path of it sucks to do the work, but you know that there's something really cool on the other side if you prevail. And it might even be hard to maintain that cool and hard thing once you get it, the physique, the business. But it's hard either way. And you got to choose the difficult life that you want to live. And one difficult life sure is a lot better than the other.
Hmm.
I don't want to be a cat person, living alone in a crappy apartment with a belly that's can't even see my toes.
Yeah, yeah, no, that sounds awful.
Awful. Yeah, never.
Never.
I told myself I set a reminder in my phone years ago when I was working at Culver's, and it was a pretty awful job. I worked some terrible hours with pretty awful people, just not the best members of society. And whenever I woke up in the morning, I got a notification at 7 a.m. and it was imagine yourself in 30 years. Tori has left you. You're fat, out of shape, and still working at Culver's. Like, do you want this to be your life? Question mark. And every morning I'd get that message.
Hmm.
And I was like, you know, I can't be okay with this no matter what. And I might not be now that I leave, but I'm not gonna die in the food industry. I'm not gonna die out of shape. You know, I'm gonna make the choices to actively win. And it's gonna be difficult either way, but I sure know which one I want.
Hmm. Dang, that's good. Maybe maybe we should end it there. That's a pretty solid thought to land on. I mean,
I agree.
ah, yeah. I honestly, those are the kind of thoughts that I think jazz up guys so much. It's like when there's a lot on the line, they're like, it seems like that's what wakes us up, you know,
Yeah, when there's risks and
when there's risk.
rewards.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're gonna lose the house unless you get the deal done or do the work. I mean, that's a pretty big. When all the cards are stacked up against you and the only option is to win or everything is gone. Oh man, people can push themselves harder. You could work for 4 days straight, not sleep a single bit, and
Yeah.
get the work done. And then sure you might die after that, but I mean, you'd be able to do it.
Well, honestly, that's funny you mentioned that. Did you know that on the election day, Trump had been awake for 72 hours?
Oh yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
Could
I'd
you
imagine it.
imagine
That's
78
crazy.
years old, not sleeping for three
Oh,
days,
oh man,
and
that
doing 7 rallies, having his winning speech? He's still very coherent. I'm like, gosh dang, I'm lazy,
that's
like
impressive. Yeah. I
yeah,
want to be
but
that active and that
at that age,
alive mentally when I'm
yeah,
that old. That's a dream.
same. I know, but yeah, like you're saying, like when everything's on the line, you can do incredible things. So
Everyone can. Everyone
yeah.
can.
Well, Colin, I thank you so much for chatting today. It was really good conversation. I learned a lot, and I think it's always great to be able to express your thoughts to someone else who can then kind of affirm or challenge those thoughts. Just kind of like reset your mind frame of like, what am I supposed to be doing? So I appreciate it. And um, yeah, it was great. And looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, it was a pleasure being on. I appreciate every second I have to talk with people who I want to be like. Gotta surround yourself with the people you want to grow into. Either grow up into be a better person or devolve into a less optimal person. And so I always take these opportunities as much as I can. And it was a blessing and a pleasure. And I always learn something when we talk. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, Colin.